Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Off-Farm Income Podcast. Hey, thank you so much for joining us here on our YouTube channel for episode number 1037. Well, you've probably heard of a shotgun wedding before, but have you ever heard of a shotgun Agriscience research project? We are going to profile one for you today. You're going to be blown away with the innovation of two young men in high school who stumbled across something that is very significant in the yield of soybeans grown in the Midwest. It's really a fascinating interview, and it also led to a National Agriscience Research Award this past October. Really cool stuff. We'll be introducing you to Mr. Matthew Grab from Freeburg Community High School in Freeburg, Illinois. Here in just a moment, we'll get that started for you. Matthew, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on today.
How you doing? Thank you for having me.
Hey, you know what? No one ever asked me that. I'm doing great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. How's life in Illinois today?
Oh, it's all right. It's kind of a gloomy, misty day this morning, but I guess at least it ain't freezing cold and it ain't burning hot yet. So that's something at least to look forward to.
Yeah, you're in that middle ground right now. Pretty soon it'll be warm middle ground, not cool middle ground. But you're in that middle ground before it's just outrageous. Well, hey, man, I really appreciate you coming on. And I'm trying to remember how I found out about you, but I think it's got to be a big national win at the Agriscience Research Fair. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. We're going to talk a lot more about that as we dive into the interview here, but I wanted to make sure and say congratulations on you on that. That is a really, really cool accomplishment. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about you. So looks like, are you at home right now or are you at school in an office?
I am at home in our farm office.
In your farm office, okay. And that was going to be my next question is, do you live on a farm? So it sounds like you do.
Yep,
Yeah.
we sure do. Small farm in southern Illinois. So.
Okay. What kind of farming are you doing there on the home place?
At the moment, just grain farming. We have chickens. If that counts for anything. I sell a few eggs on the side. Nothing major.
Okay.
There was hogs here before I was born, but that got shied away from.
Okay. Well, chickens count. But so does grains. How long has this place been in your family?
This place in particular, my grandma and grandpa moved into in the '60s.
Okay.
Before that, we farmed 10 miles south of here. I don't know much about that previous farm, but yeah, I guess you could say I'm third generation here where we are now.
Okay. Very cool. And how long have you been in part of the FFA now?
I'm a senior, so this would be my fourth year.
Fourth year. Okay. Well, you know, a lot of times when I speak with young men and young women who are growing up on a farm, the answer to this is pretty obvious. But what brought you into the FFA? Why did you join?
Just the ag community. It was the only club in school that being a farmer was cool, I guess. Only club that everybody in there had some connection to ag, and that's what I do and love. So that works out well.
Very cool. All right. Well, at this point, have you ventured into the officer ranks? Have you concentrated on other areas? How has it all played out for you?
Yeah, I've small school in Freeburg, and I've been lucky enough to be an officer all three eligible years. So I started off my sophomore year, I was the treasurer, and then my junior year, I became the vice president, and then following that, my senior year, I'm now the president.
Oh,
So that's been an experience I'm extremely grateful for. I've got to kind of learn how to handle different situations from different perspectives, and it's overall just been a good time for me.
That's great. So, man, you became president about this time last year? Would that be right?
Yeah, it was actually pushed back just a little bit due to COVID. I don't
Okay.
think it was actually until late Mayish, but yeah, we were working the whole time throughout, kind of as if there was potential for that.
Okay, gotcha. I mean, that's a pretty challenging year to become your chapter's president. Of course, you were vice president leading into that, but what did you and your previous president, and now you and your current vice president do to kind of carry the chapter through this time?
Really, it just kind of making a lot of big changes in order to do the same things we were doing and hopefully expand on them. We had to change a lot of our stuff to virtual events, which I say this all the time, but we hate doing that, but we have to. There's
Sure.
no option about it. And as it's going, we're just glad to say that we've had the amount of people, participating that we can throughout the year
Hmm.
because without some changes and some governing stuff like that, we could have very easily gone without any activities and events throughout the year. So we're
Yeah.
just glad that we were able to do that.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. You got to get something done. And how are things looking for you? Are you going to be back in school full time soon? Has that already happened? Is there any progress like that going on in your part of Illinois?
Certain areas, certain school districts, depending on their size, have kind of gotten away with something sort of like that. For Freeburg, for myself, I go 2 days a week, so I'm in school on Monday and Thursday, and then I log in remotely on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Okay.
And
Got it.
the other, that goes on a half the class basis. The other half, based off your last name, goes on Tuesday, Friday, and everybody's remote on
Okay.
Wednesdays.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right. Well, let's do this. I would love to acknowledge your FFA advisor or advisors. How many do you have there at Freeburg?
I just currently we have one. Her name is Miss Dusty Ingalls. Uh, she's actually the third teacher I've had there. Just new teachers passing around jobs, I guess. But she does a very good job. I appreciate everything she's helped me with. All my advisors have helped me with my science fair project, as you mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I know they do a lot of work, and I couldn't be more grateful for what they do for us.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for acknowledging her and bringing that up. You're a lacrosse user yourself. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I've had lacrosse boots for a few years now. I know my dad wears a pair as well. We like them for deer hunting and just working outside. They're great. They have never failed to keep our feet warm and dry, and there ain't much you can complain about with that. That's about all we ask out of them, and we go back and we'd buy more. There's just nothing better. We can't complain and couldn't ask for anything different.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about your experience with lacrosse. They're a great sponsor of our show, and they support the FFA, and I love to talk about them, love to brag about them. How long have you been wearing that pair you've got?
The pair I currently have, I actually, well, my dad wore them before I did, and now they fit my feet. So I bet they've been here 6 years probably, and they're still in real good shape. So that's like I said, it's nothing to complain about.
That's awesome. Awesome. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for saying that. And let's talk about your supervised agricultural experience. So, my notes talk about Agriscience research, and obviously that's where you had the big award. We definitely want to talk about that. But my notes also say ag mechanics and repair. Why don't we start there? Tell us about that and what you're doing with that.
Yeah, so that is a project where I bought a basically junk John Deere 1941 John Deere A, and I went through the process of rebuilding and bringing it back to life. It's now completely restored, and I got some money and assets on that. That was kind of the biggest thing, was working up from something that ain't worth much to building it up and being able to build some value in that. But yeah, I basically went through a tractor and completely rebuilt and renovated the thing to brand new.
Wow. What was the inspiration behind that? Why did you choose that project?
My dad had tractors when he was in high school, and he kind of pushed me to do it. It's something he said, we're both here. We can do this together now. It's an experience that I was grateful to have, and he kind of just like, you'll like it. You're not gonna like spending the money, but you'll be glad that you had what you did.
And you were able to profit off of that, or did you wind up keeping
I kept it. I couldn't
it?
fathom to sell it. It's worth more than that to me. So.
That's funny. When this started, was the idea that you would recoup the expense, that you would sell it, and you changed your mind to keeping it, or did you always know that it was going to be something you'd hold on to?
It was always a possibility, but in the back of my head, and I think my dad was probably thinking the same thing. It's not going nowhere. That's probably what was going to happen, and we kind of knew it. But selling it was always an idea that was there.
Yeah, that's really cool. And so you were able to do that in conjunction with your dad.
Yep, yep.
That's really cool. Now, did you have all the skills and know-how that you needed when you started this, or did you learn while you were going along?
No, absolutely not. I learned a bunch along the way from him, from other people in the area that have worked on tractors similar to this. Yeah, it's part of being in the community. It's something I've learned through FFA as well. Actually had a few people through FFA help me out for this project.
Mm-hmm.
It's yeah, something he taught me a bunch of, and other people as well. There was a few things that I knew, but basics. But that comes from working on the farm before in the last few years as well.
Yeah, man, that's great. Did you do body work and paint and all of that in addition to the mechanical?
Yep, I'd have to say I think I enjoyed the mechanical work a bit more than the body work. That was a little frustrating at times, but again, it's something that I've learned a lot of, and I believe I can do pretty well now.
Very cool. Well, we on the show we've profiled a gentleman from Wisconsin, not too far from you, that turned that into a full-time business, restoring people's tractors for them. So it's a really interesting thing that can be done there, because there's so many people that grew up on farms are no longer farming, but there's an old tractor out there, or they find one that was like what their dad or their grandpa had or something like that, and they'd just love to get it fixed up and have that connection to the farm. It's a real viable thing. It's exciting that you did that.
Yeah, I wouldn't ask for anything else. That's something I'm so glad I did and would never take back.
Awesome. Okay. Well, let's switch gears. Tell me about Agriscience research and what this consisted of.
All right, ag science. That's something I've always enjoyed doing. Even in grade school, I did science projects around the farm, just stuff to play with, kind of proving stuff. And then coming to high school, I could compete with it. There was always, it was one of the events that they had a kind of a cash prize for, so it was kind of just an incentive to go for it and do it. My freshman year, I did a project on woodworking. But my sophomore year, I met up with a buddy and we did this together actually. And we decided that we wanted to do something with soybeans because we wanted to learn how to increase yields or profitability or just better understand what we were doing for our own individual family farms.
Mm-hmm.
So to begin with, we just tested the yield outcome based on when a soybean was met hail damage, met a hailstorm.
Okay.
Um, so that was just kind of like the fact that if you get one early, should you replant? Is it worth it?
Okay.
That was the goal of that initial project. But through that, we found that the soybeans that were actually damaged from a hailstorm early in the growing season um, consistently had a higher yield than those that were damaged later on and left completely untouched.
Really?
So, and I guess in simpler terms, to be the ones that were touched early yielded better than the ones that weren't touched at all. So this it really surprised us. So
Yeah.
okay, what can we do with that? How can we do that over the whole farm or over a sustainable scale that we can do to increase our yields for our benefit and other farmers in the area. So then we came up with the idea of the Cobra, and that comes through talking to different agronomists and our farmers, my dad, his dad, his grandpa, different people that kind of know some of that stuff, different co-ops giving ideas. But yes, so we came up with the Cobra idea, and we would use the Cobra to spray the soybeans in the V4 stage, which is the fourth vegetative. That was like a month after they're planted, roughly. They're like a foot tall at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And that would actually burn them very similar to the damage they would receive from the hail at that exact time.
Okay.
So then with the project that we ended up winning with, that's the project where we sprayed them, and we came back and we consistently again proved that you could increase yields by stressing soybeans at the early growth stages.
That is crazy. Who would have ever thought? So Cobra is a herbicide. Am I understanding that right?
Yes.
Okay.
It's called Lactin is its actual name.
Okay. So, and you're saying it's obviously it's not a systemic. It's a burn down type herbicide. Am I guessing right on this?
Correct. It was just used for weed control before Roundup in the 90s. So it's actually an old
Okay.
chemical that has been around for a while, and everybody uses it, just a little bit of it a year. Just about
Okay.
everybody I talk to uses some for just roadsides and ditches, stuff like that. Yeah, we just turned it into something that can be a little more useful.
So it's like a quick kill herbicide, not one that's going to go down and go into the roots like glyphosate or something like that. That way the plant can continue to grow. And I'm assuming you just use what, a really, really light application to do this? So how do you do it without destroying the soybeans altogether?
We just we went off the rate suggested on the label, and we cut that by a couple ounces. We
Okay.
were down to I believe 9 ounces an acre, and that's what we ran with. We didn't actually test any other rates at that time. That
Okay.
is in the works currently, but that's the rate we ran with, and that brought success. So that's kind of where we are now.
Wow, that's amazing. So this started your sophomore year with looking at hail damage, and then you won the Agriscience Research Award this past October. So you conducted this experiment. I'm assuming, was it last year's growing season? Is that when you did that?
No, that would have been 2 years growing season. 2 years ago growing
So
season.
2019.
So correct. Last year when we actually had won, we had our third year's project completed
Okay.
by the time we were actually competing with the second year's project.
Okay. And this all started by wanting to know what hail damage did to the yield of soybeans.
Correct. Yeah, that's kind of something as simple as it was, and where we went from it was unbelievable. But
It really is.
um,
So, I mean, a couple things are unbelievable here. And I've never spent any time in Southern Illinois or Northern Illinois for that matter. But you must get enough hailstorms that this is somewhat predictable. Otherwise, I mean, if it was me trying to do this experiment, I'd be watching the weather every day, running all over the county trying to find a field that had hail damage. It must happen enough that you were able to do this to even begin with.
Yeah, it has happened a few times, and I honestly something that we see just about as much is soybeans that are in lower lying fields. They end up flooding out when they're real short, and we know I know as a farmer, other farmers that grow soybeans would know that soybeans just don't like that much water.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that we see quite often as well, and so that just same kind of stress effect that we see in a couple different situations that is possible throughout the growing season with the storms that have occurred here in the summertime. That we kind of just wanted to know more, and it was something that we just thought was a good competing point as well.
So, when you started this very first project, was your hypothesis that hail damage was going to decrease yield?
Yeah, and it would decrease more as the growing season went on.
And your hypothesis was, I mean, this is nothing against you, but that's what I would assume too. But your hypothesis turned out to be 180 degrees incorrect.
Yeah, and if it, well, it depends on which way you look at it.
Okay.
Yield did decrease more as the growing season went on. So the later the soybeans that had grown longer then received the simulated hail damage, they did yield significantly less.
Okay.
But the ones we did not expect that the first simulation of the V4 would be jump ahead of the control or untouched soybeans. If
Okay.
that makes any sense.
Okay. So I think I'm misunderstanding something. You were simulating hail damage. You weren't actually measuring actual hail damage.
Correct. Yeah, we
Okay.
simulated it actually with a 10 gauge shotgun. We
Oh,
sprayed some soybeans with that to knock
okay.
leaves off.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So and how big of a plot was your test plot to do this?
Just a little bit bigger than a hula hoop.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, if that tells you anything.
Okay. So not very big, honestly. A little bit bigger
Right.
than a hula hoop. Now, when it comes to a sample size, I mean, and as part of your research, did you get as deep as running statistical analysis and doing all that type of stuff, or was it just straight over here with there was no hula hoop size and no shotgun damage? It yielded less. How sophisticated did it get in the end that very first year?
So each individual hula hoop was marked off the day they were planted,
Okay.
and a ring of survey flags wrapped around it.
Okay.
As you went through the growing season, we strapped ourselves, harnessed ourselves to the top of the grain bin. That was 50 yards away, and we shot the different sections. 4
Okay.
trials at each time period, and then afterwards we actually had to hand shell those
Okay.
individual trials.
Okay.
And then later on, we would go on to statistically run like a t-test
Mm-hmm.
for significance. Other than that, nothing really statistics based was done at this point.
Okay.
But as we talk now, this project is continuing to get developed even after our
Sure.
competition FFA. We're going to continue working and looking into this over the next few years.
Interesting. What did you, when you shot the 10 gauge into the soybeans, what did you use? Were you using like actual bird shot, or did you, I just tell me what you used. What'd you shoot it with?
Yeah, just number two shot. I don't know if
Oh,
you're
number
an
two shot.
outdoorsman,
Yeah,
but
yeah. So like a
so,
duck load, like something you
the
would,
BB.
a
Right.
BB. Okay.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. And so then you got these results and you're like, well, wow, it increased yield. So how can we replicate this? Did you use the herbicide next because you were trying to do it over a larger area with a larger sample size?
Correct. We immediately went into the idea of trying to make the idea and the research we had discovered sustainable.
Okay.
We wanted to be able to use that to benefit our own farms so that we could do it over, you know, half of our soybeans, and maybe even if you can increase your yield by a bushel, 2 bushels, that's still little money for yourself to help
Sure.
build yourself up and better your farm and just overall better ag as an industry.
Sure. So was it the next year that you transitioned and now did it over a larger scale with the herbicide?
Correct. We have, yeah, started to do it over slowly and slowly started to go a little bit larger and a little bit larger. The past year, we haven't competed with that project and won't be now because of COVID and just the fact that we won. They don't like us to compete again.
Okay.
But we've learned that soybeans that do sit in lower fields and receive the stress don't respond to it quite as well.
Okay.
So it might be something that we in the future look more towards using on a taller fields or fields with more rolling hills because they
Mm-hmm.
drain better.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just one of the things that we learned in the third year of the project, which would be actually right before we had won with at nationals with the second year of the project.
Okay. Now, are you able to compete for the American Star Award in Agriscience research this coming year?
I um I did compete with it at state,
Okay.
and we're going through the process of getting approved. I'm competing at state for that award here in a week or two.
And if
So then,
you
if
okay.
I succeed there, I will move on from there to
Okay.
compete for national.
Wow, that's really exciting. Really, really cool. Now, whose soybean seed do you use?
That soybean seed was all Syngenta.
Syngenta. Okay. Interesting stuff. I mean, with these findings and everything you've published, has anybody from Syngenta or any other seed companies reached out and said, "Hey, wait a minute, we want to know more about this"?
Not yet at this time. No, we are working through the process of, like I said, continuing to learn and develop more, but also kind of just to get it out there more. To,
Mm-hmm.
see what other people in the industry think of. I know earlier I mentioned other farmers, co-ops, agronomists. They're all we're all trying to push the idea towards them so they can maybe pass it around a little bit, just kind of
Okay.
get the word out a little more. And I have talked with our Syngenta rep about it.
Uh-huh.
He's more than happy to sell his seed as it is, and it's just I think for him it's just something to talk about and to
Yeah.
to brag about to others that he sells to as well.
Yeah. I've done quite a bit of work with Pioneer, and I can't imagine accidentally stumbling across a variety that does well under the stress of hail damage. That's it's a total bonus. But that's a very sophisticated industry. I don't pretend to really understand how they figure all that out, but it is very interesting to hear about. Now, farmers are farmers are funny folks. Unbelievably strong community ties, but also this little competitive part of farmers. Was there ever any part of your dad or your buddy's dad or you guys going, well, this is really cool, but let's keep it our little secret to give us a little bump on yield around the county here?
No, we kind of think that we already have enough headroom that we're willing to try it on ours and take the risk. Other guys, I think it's going to take a little bit more convincing to really get them to try
Okay.
something like that. So it's a crazy enough idea that I think
Yeah,
we got enough headroom for a while that we can maybe get ahead for ourselves first.
that was very cool. All right. So where does this part of you that likes to do research come from?
Um, That's a very good question. I've always been a very curious person. I like to play with things and see what they do. But really, I think my dad pushes me to do some of this stuff quite a bit, and not in a bad way, and really in a very good way.
Sure.
I don't want to say we're the see what happens kind of people, but it's never been shied away from testing something. We're always putting one variety of corn in one half and the other another in the other half of the planter, and going down the field with the grain cart and scale, and seeing what the difference is. Because we're just curious. We just want to know.
Yeah.
You know, got just trying to figure it out for future. Run it on different soil types. There's so many variables,
Hmm.
and we like to test that. We're both of us were very curious, so I think most of it comes from there. Um, but just research in general, there's no real big history of it besides just doing stuff like that on the farm.
And when it came time to figure out how to simulate a hailstorm, who came up with the idea of using the shotgun?
That would be my buddy's grandpa. It's Mr. Tom Rain. She was our ag advisor for many years
Okay.
before we actually got into high school. He retired. And yeah, he came up with that idea, and we're both me and Cullen, my buddy, we're both outdoorsmen, and it just kind of a fun way to play with some soybeans and have some do some research. So we took advantage of it full swing.
That is really, really cool. Well, that is unbelievably interesting, Matthew. And like I said, I've been lucky enough to interview a number of seed breeders and agronomists for Pioneer and hear what they do, hear how much they enjoy the research and developing new varieties and seeing how things yield and how they perform and how they perform under stress. I'm really excited for you hearing that you've got this part in you, just because I don't have that part in me. And man, that natural curiosity, and then to be able to live in a world and make your living in a world if you want, where you spend your time just kind of exploring that curiosity, I think is a really fortunate thing. That's really lucky. And with that in mind, you will be graduating here soon, so congratulations on that already. But what's next for you after that?
Um, Next for me after graduation, first off, thank you.
You're welcome.
Um, then I'll be going to community college here, just 50 minutes to an hour away from home. The
Mm-hmm.
main reason for that is just competitive tuition.
Uh-huh.
I'm also very business minded, so it's something for me that I can do and not waste money and kind of get to the point.
I did the same thing.
So first 2 years, that's the plan. After that, a university is very very likely, but I've told everybody that you should ask me again in 2 years. We'll see where we are.
All right. Well, right now, as you're already planning to go to community college and then considering university after that, what are you considering studying? What's jumping out at you?
Ag business for now. I'm gonna try to take some minor classes in some agronomy and some soil sciences. And the main reason for that is overall, I wish I could be a farmer full time, but it's just not possible with the size of our farm and
Mm-hmm.
the two of us, me and Dad. But hopefully, I can learn enough from business school, and I can get a good job that I can help build up the farm at the same time and kind of make it my business and hopefully be successful in that, and maybe one day retire a few years early and go down to just farming.
Okay.
But we'll see what happens.
Okay. Yeah, that is the dream, to farm full time. But if you can't, working in agronomy and being out there in fields and helping other people farm while you're doing your own, I think it's a nice alternative to that. Um, I don't know, in my opinion. And of course, we always push entrepreneurship as a way of doing that here, but we can talk about that another time. That is really cool. I'm excited for you, and you know, yeah, I wish everybody, I wish the whole country, for selfish reasons, but also for other reasons, would listen to this interview. And the reason I say that is I listen to you talk, and I listen to you talk about your natural curiosity. Just like most people driving down the road today don't know what they're looking at when they look at a field of soybeans to start with. But even most farmers are farming their soybeans. They're doing it the way they've done it for years. They're interested in improving yields, and they're doing all that type of stuff. But the natural curiosity, without maybe an agronomist pushing them or something like that, to just set out there and do their own experiment and say, what would happen if, to me, really demonstrates the heart of the innovative American farmer. You've got it. Your dad obviously has it. your friend and your friend's grandpa have it, and it makes me smile to do the interview with you and hear that. So I know you got a future there. I'm very excited for you, Matthew, and thank you so much for coming on and sharing this with us today. It's been a lot of fun.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm more than happy to talk about it anytime. I love to share my ideas. I'm just glad somebody wants to listen.
Well, thank you for being here, everybody. And thank you again to Matthew Grab for coming on the Off Farm Income Podcast. That was a lot of fun. And I told him off the air, but I'll tell it to all of you. Man, he reminds me of so many of the different plant breeders and agronomists that I was lucky enough to interview for the Pioneer Tour podcast and for the Corn Revolution podcast. And just very excited for that young man. Well, hey, we would love it if you would click that subscribe button down below and become a subscriber here on our YouTube channel. And we'd love to have you follow us on social media as well. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Well, everybody, as always, enjoy your journey to the ultimate lifestyle business, agriculture.